Hey everybody, this is part of our full-length primetime podcast. You can check it out on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, YouTube, plenty more. I hope you enjoy.
And Brandon, we're moving on into our last topic here on the Primetime Podcast, and we're going to be talking about a team we talked about, I want to say it was a month ago. It feels like a long time ago. The Illinois State Redbirds. I almost said Illinois Redbirds. That'd be wrong. The Illinois State Redbirds, ISU. We're talking about them today, mainly because this past weekend, they lose their conference championship game to Wichita State. And now the team that is 27-6 and finished 17-1 in their conference play, they're on the bubble. They are firmly on the bubble, and their basically tournament hopes are all in the committee's hands next Sunday.
Well, I think the thing that really hurts Illinois State is the fact that they did not just lose to Wichita State 2 times.
They got blown out.
But they got blown out 2 times to Wichita State. Mm-hmm. And I think that really did not help them. I think that you look at some of these other losses. They lost to Tulsa by 2. They lost to Murray State by 3. And so I think that a couple of those games that you look back on and you go, would have been nice to get those. I think that's coming back to bite them. And it's really unfortunate, too, because they have had such a good season. Mm-hmm. But I think that when you cannot even come close to beating the best team in your conference, Wichita State, that's tough.
Well, and here's something that I'm going to say just so I don't sound hypocritical. I compare Illinois State right now to Gonzaga. And the reason why is they both play in conferences that we would look at and say, what? That's not a conference. Who's your opponent? You don't have any competition. Well, the big difference is the Zags won their regular season crown, so they get an automatic bid, and most likely are going to win the conference tournament crown, which would be an automatic bid, both of which Illinois State didn't do. Wichita State won the regular season crown by tying with the Redbirds at 17-1, and then they win the conference tournament, obviously, by beating them this weekend in the championship game. And really, that's why for these conferences, for these teams, and Illinois State, when you're part of like the Missouri Valley Conference, you're winning your conference and winning the conference tournament are so important. Because if you don't win, then there's the opportunity for a team from a Big 12, from an ACC, from a Big 10 to come through and just kind of snatch it right from you. Because we mentioned earlier in the podcast, they right now sit as the last possible team in the tournament. And Joe Lunardi has them right now as one of the play-in games. They would be one of the 11 seed play-in games. They would play Wake Forest in the first game, and guess who they would get if they win? Iowa State. So they're probably getting bounced. If they win that play-in game, they're probably getting bounced in the first round because of how good Iowa State is. But the teams right below them, 2 of which we talked about in the first segment, Rhode Island's right there. Kansas State could try to make a run in the Big 12 conference tournament. Illinois could try to steal it from them. Iowa could try to steal it from them. And then if we go even further, teams like Cal and Georgia Tech could try to make runs in their conference tournament as well.
You know, Ricky, I sit here and I listen to you talk about, all the things that, you feel bad for Illinois State because they only had 1 loss in conference and all this stuff and compare them to Gonzaga and all these things. But I disagree. I don't think that you can compare them to Gonzaga because what Gonzaga did was not only did they win inside their conference.
They won every game except for one.
They won outside their conference, and they played good teams. They played, teams like Florida. And they played teams like, who's another team that they played that was good, that was reputable? I can't even think right now. But you play a team like Florida, you beat a team like Florida. I'm very high on Florida. I think they're very good.
Iowa State.
Thank you.
Arizona.
Yes.
And St. Mary's twice. Those are our RPI top 50 wins.
And St. Mary's inside their conference, but they're a very good team. It's like Illinois State's Wichita State. But Illinois State could not beat Murray State. They could not beat TCU. They could not beat Tulsa. They could not beat San Francisco. All those teams outside of your conference. You're close. You're close. You lost by 2 to Tulsa. You lost by 3 to Murray State. You lost by 9 to TCU. You lost by 8 to San Francisco. Guess what? You still lost. You still lost, and then you got spanked 2 times by Wichita State. So I think that Illinois State, what they need to do moving forward, whether they're able to make it into the tournament or not, is that you play very well inside your conference. Inside a conference that really, for the most part, is not that strong. You need to be able to schedule some tough opponents outside of that, but you also need to be ready and prepared to play well against those opponents and get some wins. I think even if they have one win, let's say they won that TCU game. Say they win that TCU game. I do. I think that that's something that may be able to at least put them over the hump because they were able to win a game against a Big 12 team that, hey, you know what? They had a win against them. TCU was not ranked, but guess what? They still beat a team outside of their own conference.
Well, and right now...
In a very reputable conference.
Right now, looking at it right now, we could talk about what should have happened, could have happened, but right now, the bottom line is Illinois State is technically in, according to Joe Lunardi, the committee could say something totally different, but let's be honest. Joe Lunardi is one of the best bracketologists in this game, in this field, that usually what Joe is saying is going to happen. And right now he has them in the tournament. You look at the teams that they are rivaling with, they're basically hoping for, they're cheering for, let's say, Michigan to win. They're cheering for Washington to beat USC. They're cheering for, in the ACC, who Wake Forest is playing, they're cheering for Boston College to get a huge upset win over Wake Forest. They're hoping for Rhode Island to lose their first game. They're hoping for a lot of different things. Also, Iowa as well. Basically anyone in that last 4 in, first 4 out, they're hoping that they get bounced in their first game. Like, that would be, if all those teams got bounced in their first game, cool. We're sitting pretty because they had one game on us and they lost it. We got to our conference final. That could work out for them. For Iowa, it's Indiana, which Iowa could lose that first game to Indiana with how Indiana has played of late. A lot better of a team than we've seen most of this season. But for Illinois State, this is the worst possible place to get into because, like you mentioned it, Brandon, you had the opportunity. You had the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? We're going to take it into our own hands. We're going to win the regular season or we're going to win the conference tournament. Guess what? It didn't happen. Now, because that didn't happen, you are putting your faith not just into the committee, but you're putting your faith and your fate of the tourney into what will happen with the other conference tournaments. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to the question that we have yet to answer. Should Illinois State, at this point, well, I'll kind of ask a twofold question. The first one is, should they make it right now based off of everything we've seen? And then how do you think everything's going to play out? And will they be in or will they be out?
Well, the way that I look at it right now, Ricky, is no. I do not think that they are deserving of going to the tournament. And that is because you have a 17-1 record inside your conference. That is great. That is a very, very good record. The next best team after you in your conference, after the 17-1 record that you're also tied with Wichita State with in your conference, Southern Illinois, 9-9 in the conference, 17-16 overall. That's just not getting it done, and you had too many losses outside of your conference. I just don't think they're strong enough, Ricky. I don't think they're strong enough. I don't think that they have the solid quality wins outside the conference. They could not even beat Wichita State. They couldn't come close to them. Well, excuse me. They did beat Wichita State one time. But they got blown away 86-45, and they got blown away 71-51. So if I had said that they did not beat Wichita State at all, that is wrong. They beat Wichita State earlier in the season, but it was just two awful losses to them. And I don't know if Illinois State has done enough around that. I don't know if they've done enough around that to qualify for being in this tournament after you look at some of these other teams that have done well in their conference, but they've also done well non-conference. And I think those are the teams that need to be in the tournament. Those are the teams I think should jump Illinois State.
And it's one of those things where with Illinois State right now, I'm going to say right now, before we've played Champ Week, I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think that they have done enough. Well, it's not that they've done enough. It's that their record speaks for them at this point. 27 wins, 27-6 overall, 17-1 in conference. If we look at, I'm just looking at the first four that Joe Lunardi has after them. They have a better record than Iowa. Iowa's at 18-13. Then you have Rhode Island 21-9, Kansas State at 19-12, and the Illinois Fighting Illini at 18-13. So you have single digit losses, well over 20 wins, where the only team that has over 20 wins out of these four is Rhode Island. However, these are all teams because of the conferences they play in, mainly Iowa, Kansas State, and Illinois. They get more cracks at opponents that you, like you said, could have been playing in non-conference. And if these teams go on runs, win a game here, win a game there, then it could be bad news bears for the Redbirds.
But let me tell you, too, is that it's not just the cracks for the non-conference. It's not just about the non-conference.
It's about who you play.
It's about it's about who you're playing. It's about who the team is. If they had another team that was good inside their conference, like Wichita State, then okay. Then, well, maybe if you still have that 17-1 record, all right. But you're not playing teams like West Virginia. You're not playing teams like Baylor. And I understand that you're not, because that's not your conference. That's not your fault.
You're not going out like Wichita State did, playing Louisville when they were number 10, playing Michigan State when they were the 24th team in the country. They played Oklahoma. They played Oklahoma State. And the thing with the Redbirds is, I'm going to say this. If you make or not make the NCAA tournament this year, I know that the NIT is like I hated that when the Fighting Illini, like I think it was a year or two ago, maybe it was 3, because I know we played, I want to say it was the year we played. Actually, no. It was Rayvonte Rice's senior year. It was the year we played Clemson in the NIT. That was the year where we're like, oh, we're on the bubble. Oh, please, cross the fingers. Could we get in? We didn't get in. And it's like, well, I don't want to watch the NIT, but this team, even if they don't get in, is going to be in the NIT. Will probably be a 1 seed in the NIT, which I'm assuming that these players will say, yeah, I want to play in it, because the seniors especially are going to be like, yeah, I want anything to play one more game in my senior season. But maybe this is where Illinois State kind of turns the tide and says, okay, we're going to schedule some tougher opponents. You don't have to go out there and say, boom, we're playing Duke, we're playing North Carolina. It could be okay, we're playing Illinois. Okay, we're playing Iowa. Okay, we're going to go ahead and schedule the Wake Forest. We're going to play teams from just the lower teams from the big Power Fives just to get that experience. It could be that, and then eventually you could build this program up into what Wichita State is right now.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to have to be, and that's what it's going to have to take. I mean, even taking a look still at Kansas State and looking at they played Boston College, they played Maryland, they played Providence, they played teams like that. Washington State, another one, and the only team they lost to out of those, Maryland. They lost to Maryland, and it was a close game. Then they played a really, really close game against Kansas. They played a really close game against Baylor. They beat West Virginia. They beat Baylor. They were able to get Baylor. But the reason I'm going through all these is because Kansas State, I think, is a perfect example of a team who I think should be in because of what they've done this season. And 19-12, a lot of people would say, 19-12 is not that great. They have a losing record in their conference. Yeah, they do, but I still think that a team like this that has been able to get some of the wins that they got, quality wins, that's the type of team that I think that you put in there. A team that's had a fight of a season. And I think that when you take a look at an Illinois State, then Illinois State is above them at 17-1 in their conference, and you have to give them credit for that, at 27-6 overall. But is it a deceiving 27-6? Not necessarily by any fault of their own, but I think they need to schedule harder conference games, and we've clearly come to that agreement that we're now going to be the consultants for Illinois State, let them know they need to schedule harder non-conference games. But I think that when you take a look at a team like Kansas State, that's the type of team that I think, even at 19-12, is the type of team that I think should be getting into the tournament over a team that's 17-1 overall, 17-1 conference, 27-6 overall. But K-State played tougher opponents, had a tougher season, had a bigger grind.
Well, and the last thing that I'm going to bring into this is we've come around into the circle. Of course, they need to schedule tougher games, but one thing that's going to be a hit, and I know we've kind of turned this into the future of Illinois State because it's one of those things where should they be in? You said no, I said yes right now. However, with how things are playing out, I think both of us are on the side of no, the Redbirds are not going to make the tournament.
Yeah.
They need basically all these teams to lose, and one of them's going to get one win to move on and to take a spot away. But a big thing that is going to hurt them moving on, Paris Lee and Deontay Hawkins, two senior players, two of their leading scorers, bye-bye at the end of the year because you're seniors. So they're going to lose Lee, they're going to lose Hawkins. That means McIntosh, the 5'7" forward, is going to move up into a senior role next year, and he's probably going to be the leading scorer. There's going to have to be guys that step up for Lee and Hawkins if the Redbirds want to kind of build this program and make it a strong one, like I mentioned, where you can start scheduling tougher opponents to build it into kind of like what Wichita State has right now, because Wichita State is in recent years, Greg Marshall kind of has a powerhouse built there in the MVC to where they can just win the regular season, win the conference tournament. Okay, we're going to the tournament. And I know they had that undefeated season a year or two, maybe even 3 years ago. But before we get to your final thoughts, any last things on Illinois State before we end up the podcast and wrap up shop?
I think just again, for Illinois State, I definitely think that this is a team that clearly shows that they can be good. I think that they just need to get a little bit more meat in their schedule. And once they do that, then I think that they've got a real opportunity to be able to make it into this tournament. Well,
Brandon, it's that time of the podcast. Before I wrap up shop completely, it's Swanee's final thoughts.
Well, Ricky, this week I don't have too many final thoughts, but I'm trying to really think of anything. Well, here I'll think of this. This is just so pointless and meaningless. But last night they had the iHeart Radio Music Awards.
I saw that and then I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I did. Love that. Love that stuff. Got a lot of my favorite.
You're an awards show guy.
I'm an awards show guy because I enjoy that kind of stuff. I enjoy like the music. I enjoy see who's going to win the movies and actors and stuff. Because I watch all that. I watch a lot of movies. I listen to a lot of music. The very popular mainstream music.
The stuff Sean doesn't like.
Yes, the stuff that Sean does not like. For whatever reason, I'm not sure. But last night they had a lot of really good performances. I'm a big fan of the Chainsmokers. They were able to take home a couple of good awards. They were the winner of the what was it? I think it's the award like whatever. Who cares?
Upcoming Artist of the Year.
Yeah, something like that. But they had an outstanding performance. Them and Chris Martin from Coldplay had a great performance. Something just like this was the song that they performed. It was outstanding. Big fan of a lot of the music that's coming out. A lot of good stuff is coming up, and if you guys are into the mainstream music and things like that, a lot of good songs going to be coming out. Bruno Mars did a great job last night as well. It's those types of things. I think they're a lot of fun.
Well, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. This is where you guys come in. Let us know anything we talked about today. Illinois State, predicting the 1 seeds, and, of course, we kind of previewed the championship week coming up. Let us know down below in the comment section what you think. I want to thank you guys for either watching on YouTube or listening on Blog Talk Radio. He's at young_swan19. I'm at Ricky Widmer. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod. If you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Another way you can support the channel is patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. But as always, thank you guys for watching. And then, as always, have a good day, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed a lot of emotion. If you want more, click this video right over my left shoulder. You will certainly not regret it.